The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Speaker, I rise also to support the Unit Titles Act and associate myself with the comments made by my colleague, the Honourable Ruth Dyson. This was part of the Statutes Amendment Bill. Unlike most other parts of the Statutes Amendment Bill, it did attract a number of submissions and well-reasoned submissions. Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, the vast majority of those submissions were outside the scope of the relatively minor changes that were being made as part of the Statutes Amendment legislation. And I do want to reiterate, there's been a commitment to a substantive change in unit title legislation. We had a minor change in 2010. It became apparent in 2011 that released 21 minor errors to the minor legislation, and some major errors to that, and some areas that needed to be looked at. Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, despite the commitments that were made to the committee by officials and by the then Minister, there hasn't been any progress. Although I can be proven wrong, there might be a Unit Titles Act amendment bill introduced in the next couple of weeks. But we did have an undertaking that we'd have something back before the end of the year that dealt with the substantive matters which were raised with the Select Committee, but which we had to tell the people who were making the submissions, sort of like, sorry, this is a Unit Titles Amendment legislation, but it's not wide enough, it wasn't wide enough to encompass and to deal with the very real issues that are causing harm to people who own or want to develop unit title properties or want to convert properties into unit titles. And I do say to members opposite that, think about Auckland a little bit and think about some of the intensification that needs to occur. And to do it properly, one of the answers, it is only one of the answers, is to have decent working unit title legislation. It is important if people are going to feel safe putting what is often their biggest investment. For most New Zealanders, it is their biggest investment, their property, the home that they live in. For people to feel safe about having unit titles, there's got to be good legislation, there's got to be appropriate legislation, and we haven't got that yet, despite the promises of various ministers, including Maurice Williamson and Nick Smith over a period of time. As has been indicated, Mr Speaker, this makes 21 amendments, all of them minor, to a minor bill that was introduced to the Parliament by the National Party in 2010. The idea that they can make 21 mistakes in a relatively small bit of legislation does go to the lack of focus on detail, the lack of care of their ministers, the fact that they don't work their Cabinet Committee and Select Committee process well. But, Mr Speaker, in most countries, making 21 errors in a relatively minor bill and having to come back to the Parliament to get it fixed up a year or so later would be a source of outrage. But unfortunately, Mr Speaker, it is a level of competence that we've come to expect from the National Party, and they come to the opposition, and the only reason we're supporting them is that this does a little bit of good for some people who've got unit titles.
Members, this debate is concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Unit Titles Amendment Bill, third reading.
Call on Government Order of the Day number 10.
Medicines